going out. So, this is about your mental ability or your emotional ability to cope with going out. So, you may traditionally see this as relating to agoraphobia, so the idea of a person leaving the home in some way, becoming quite stressed or anxious about that. Now, there are differences with that. Some people might have agoraphobia and they're fine just to pop to the shop or to take their little dog for a walk up on the field, or something like that, where they feel fairly safe. But going further afield would be too much for them to deal with. Again, this would also relate to social events as well, and events where there's a few people around. Some people are able to work while having agoraphobia, but either they work from home or the office they work in is sort of away from everybody else, those kinds of things. All of that needs to be considered. Certainly when considering these things, you need to think about what sort of preparation you have to do beforehand as well. What is the impact of it before you leave or approach that situation? What is the effect of it afterwards? Are you so distressed or upset by what happens that you end up not leaving the house for even longer and maybe even missing other appointments, including telephone appointments, things like that? Look at the different variability in that as well quite carefully. Do you have sometimes you have panic attacks, sometimes you don't. For example, people with classic PTSD as opposed to complex PTSD may find that certain things trigger them to have specific panic attacks. And most of the day they can be going around feeling quite happy, but then something happens and it causes a trigger, and that person has to then deal with that. Whereas other people with more general anxiety will find that many things trigger panic responses, whether that be a lot of noise or a lot of sound or a lot of light, a lot of crowds, even just a lot of traffic. We can often get overwhelmed by the number of things that are happening within the space around us at any one time. They don't necessarily all have to be directed at us. It can just be lots of things are going on. So think very carefully about all of that side of things as well. And again, get as much detail as you can about it and how it impacts you. How are you afterwards? We've got the opportunity to dig down into social situations a little bit more with this. So this is very much about interacting with people. So think about what types of interactions you can have with people: 1-to-1, 1-to-2, 1-to-3, larger groups, whether those are professional situations or social situations, what kind of thing you can cope with, how much support you need from another person. Are there occasions when you're not able to engage? How frequent are those occasions? Do you avoid things altogether? This is a good opportunity to really get all of that across, and be thinking about what the impact of those things are. And also, don't be afraid to talk about the thoughts that are going through your head at the time. If you, for example, experience a lot of paranoia, it might be that you have paranoia that doesn't really correspond to anything that's happening particularly, but just be aware to put that across. I know for a lot of people, for example, who do have a stoma bag, will get a lot of panic attacks because they're really concerned about this thing happening in a social situation and it being embarrassing. Not that it has actually necessarily happened and has led to embarrassment, but just the thought of it can cause a lot of worry and a lot of panic, which is, on one side of things, seems illogical because it hasn't happened, but on another side of things is perfectly logical. So again, it's about how you communicate it. Just be factual, go into as much detail as possible.